Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners. If you're an accredited investor and you want to know about how we're helping other accredited investors keep more of their income, go to firstgencp.com/going long.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels, and we are back for another solo episode. Really looking forward to this one. You know what? The more and more that we do these solo episodes, I'm really enjoying them. And based on the feedback that you're providing, you're enjoying them too. So we may just start to do this a lot more frequently. Let's see. And if you haven't left your honest written review and rating, you want to do that because I'm going to share one of them, by the way, right now. It's going to be heard once again for people in over 30 countries, tens of thousands of downloads. And I want to start out because today we're going to finish the second part of the conversation that we started last week. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, you're going to want to go back to listen to episode 249. But today we're going to continue that conversation around the qualified plans, the defined contribution plans. And specifically today, I want to talk a little bit about that cash flow aspect. But before we do that, let's recognize somebody else. Today we're recognizing the writer is Michael B. El Pepe. So Michael B. El Pepe says, "I love this. This was my first podcast and I loved it. It was so easy to understand and Billy Keels is so down to earth and makes you feel like he's speaking directly to you. Keep it up and I look forward to seeing more." Well, thank you, Michael B. El Pepe. That was very kind of you. I really like that. And I'm glad that you love this. And hopefully a lot of the others that are part of the Going Long family love it as well. And they're going to be leaving their honest written review as well as rating so that they can have their name read across 30 different countries, which is kind of cool, as well as tens of thousands of downloads. So listen, I want to get back into the conversation. I do want to keep this relatively brief. I've mentioned to you before, I want to keep these brief. I want to try to keep them as brief as possible so that you can listen to them, get the content, and be able to put it into action. So the last time we were talking about the defined contribution plan and just the whole concept of placing your capital somewhere and you personally not being able to use it for 40 years. And, that is just one of the things that I find very interesting. But even beyond that, I went to, because I decided I wanted to check this out. I wanted to see something. So I actually went to this article. This is a CNBC.com. You can find it at CNBC article. The article is called "Nearly 2/3 of Americans are confused about this simple way to save for retirement." So what I found interesting was last week we talked about, just being able to be able to understand the concept of putting your money somewhere that you will not be able to touch for 40 years without penalty or fear of something negative happening. When you think about today, I think there's roughly 87 million Americans that are part of the qualified plans. And roughly 63% of them, 2/3. So I want to read this article. This article is it's from 2019, but you can check it out. Like I said, it's on CNBC. It's called "Nearly 2/3 of Americans are confused about the simple way to save for retirement." And it starts off by saying, if you can't define a 401k plan, that is a defined contribution plan, you're not alone. Though it's one of the most common retirement savings vehicles, 63% of Americans don't understand exactly how it works. And the article goes on to tell a little bit more about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can check it out if you want to do that. But I just want to come back to the concept that we were talking about before, right? It is this whole thing of putting your capital somewhere, putting your currency somewhere, your money, and you're not going to be able to touch it for a while. That's one thing. But the other thing, if you think about it, it's pretty staggering that you're doing that, and 63% of people, based on this survey, don't even understand what's going on. So sometimes if you don't understand, what you don't know can and frequently does, and I mentioned that before, does hold you back or it can hurt you. And so if you're like the other 63% of Americans who are placing their capital without really understanding it, that's not necessarily a good thing. I'm sure many of you are not, because you're here and you're part of the Going Long family, and these are the things that we talk about so that you can have more control. But let me also put another concept out there just for today's conversation. And I want to look at it from that point of the cash, right? Because what are you doing with that cash? Because eventually the thing is you're placing this capital somewhere where you are giving broad indications as to what you want it to be able to do. If you are in a small cap fund or you are in a global fund or whatever the case may be, they give you some and they tell you if it's higher risk, lower risk, and what you can expect it to do. But the fact of the matter is, number one, you have been placing this capital in a place where you have a complete lack of control. You give general indications, but you're doing, and I guess I always look at it from the perspective of what you're doing every day. You are working really, really hard. You are putting in loads of hours, and one of the elements of compensation is this 401k. But if you're placing it in something that you don't understand, you don't get to touch it for 40 years, and at the same time, you don't have much control over it, that's pretty much the opposite of what has made you great at doing what you do every day, more than likely in your role, in your corporate job, in your business, because in your business, you have high control, you're in touch, you understand, you have the right people on board. And yes, of course, I'm sure you have the right financial advisor on board, but how frequently are you in touch with the financial advisor that is actually managing your livelihood in the future? Speaking of the future, one of the things is you're at the age of retirement and you've waited 40 years to be able to touch that capital. And the thing is, at that point in your life, I guess I always ask, now that you're going to have more time, do you plan on doing less? Because if you plan on doing less, then that's okay. But the reality is most of the people that I know are very, very active, and I'm sure you're very active as well. And so when you have more time, you will want to do more things, especially you will want to spend more time with your grandkids. You may want to do more traveling. You may want to go to that place that you've always wanted to do, or buy that thing you waited most of your life to be able to buy. And so the thing that you want to keep in mind is you don't want your lifestyle to decrease. You want your lifestyle to maintain, but more than likely increase in terms of financial resources, because you're going to want to do more. You're going to want to treat those people that are your children or your grandchildren or even yourself. Go to the spa, play more golf, do whatever. And so think about the vehicles like this defined contribution plan. When you are withdrawing more money, you are also, one of the things, you're going to be taxed at the highest rates. Most people also don't talk about that. These defined contribution plans, if you're withdrawing, let's imagine you have $500,000 a year, you're withdrawing that money, you're probably going to be taxed, if you're lucky enough to live in a state like California or over on the East Coast in New York, almost 50%. So hopefully if you have a $500,000 lifestyle, then you at least have $1 million that will in your 401k. That will be worth 1 year. So just to put things into perspective, right? Because these are a lot of the times things that we're not talking about, or you may not be thinking about, the fact you're going to have more time, you're going to want to do more things. When you want to do more things, it's going to cost you more financial resources, and typically that is going to come at a higher tax rate. So you need to have even more money in there. Once again, not a tax advisor, not any of that kind of stuff, just a guy who's sharing ideas and concepts. And so definitely take the things that we're talking about, share it with your family, friends, talk to your financial advisor and see what's going on there. And then lastly, here's one other thing to keep in mind. Usually when I am talking to people, especially those of you that you like alternative investments, quote unquote alternative investments, i.e. things like real estate, energy equipment, and all this other kind of stuff, you typically like to understand and know the team and also know where your asset is. So when you are asking your 401k advisor where your asset is, it's usually over like 10,000 things. So if it's over 10,000 different companies, et cetera, is it really anywhere? Or is it as easy as saying, well, it's actually at 123 Main Street, or it's at this specific transmission line? Well, when you know exactly where it is, that's very specific. And usually that tends to help you feel more comfortable versus saying it's spread across 10,000 different companies and you have to dial a 1-800 number to get that answer from somebody. So anyway, I don't want to get on the soapbox. I just want to give you a couple of things to think about. It's the cash flow, and it's thinking about that cash flow. When you have more time, you're probably going to want to do more things. When you are doing more things, it's going to cost you more because you're usually going to take out more money, which is going to be taxed at a higher rate when you take it out. And then also having the specificity of understanding exactly where your money is. Well, I know it can be kind of concerning, but the reality is there's a really simple solution to these kind of challenges. Number one, you're already listening here, so you're taking the first step. Take this conversation, share it with others, as I mentioned before, share it with your financial advisor, have the conversation so that you can actually just have more control. Because this is, at the end of the day, it's very simple. For you to have more control, it's about taking the step to get more educated. You're already here, you're listening. Go check out the article that I mentioned before, or just start looking up, what are the tax implications when you take out your 401k money, your defined contribution plan, because we're talking about the non-Roth. I should have said that in the beginning. The non-Roth plans, right? So the more traditional type of IRAs or 401ks. And so when you start to get educated, you start to ask questions, you begin to do the math. Then as you do the math, that math is going to help direct the different decisions that you're going to make moving forward. So it's not as complicated as it sounds. And it's easier to find and have the conversations with people. I know people are connecting with me through LinkedIn and, hey, listen, I heard you talking about such and such on another podcast. And is it possible for us to get some time? As much as I can, I'd actually absolutely love to be able to talk about this, especially for those of you who are those accredited investors, high wage earners, because there's something that specifically that we can do to help you, not only to create more consistent returns moving forward, but also to help you to keep more of your money by being able to keep Uncle Sam out of your pocket and paying the right size of income tax that you need to do. And for those of you that are accredited investors, you want to find out more about this. We made a really super simple guide. You can pick that up at firstgencp.com/going long. Once again, that's firstgencp.com/going long. You can pick that up. And listen, while you are thinking about these concepts, talking about them with family and friends, I'm going to be here preparing the very next conversation, this next solo episode. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Trust that you enjoyed today's conversation. And once again, today's conversation was sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners. If you're an accredited investor and want to find out more about how we're helping accredited investors to gain their personal freedom even faster, go to firstgencp.com/going long.